CeMAT Australia, and I'm here with the amazing Jeff. How are you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing really well. Always excited to be at CeMAT. My favourite day of the year. I've been telling everyone today that this is like my Christmas day, comparing it to my daughter. So very, very happy.
Amazing. And tell us about Argon and Co for the audience, Jeff.
Yes, awesome. Argon and Co now, it's second year running that we've made quite a big commitment to the CeMAT event. We really want to make sure that people still understand and remember how passionate, how specialist we are in automation. Obviously this intralogistics automation, so this is our space. But also we've been running a workshop. So last year we did it, we had a really good response. This year it's sold out again. And this year we started focusing on bringing artificial intelligence into automated intralogistics. So AI into AI. So very exciting. We had 2 workshops, basically just exploring. AI is this huge buzzword that everyone's misusing or maybe using correctly. How do you kind of focus your AI efforts to get the most out of automation? Because what we're finding is all these cool solutions are coming together. It's the mechanical components that we're solving. We've been doing that for a long time. But now we're actually starting to reach limitations in decision making, in being able to get the most out of these systems. And that's where we're really excited. We have one of our sister companies, Iris, which is basically an AI advisory business that we can now deploy into clients and help them to get the most out of what we traditionally do, which is creating the best warehouses in the world.
Wow, fantastic, Jeff. And also, AI, like you said, it's such a buzzword. If I was to meet you for the very first time, what would you want to tell me around AI and what I need to do in my business to be more AI focused?
Yeah, I heard a term today for the first time that CEOs are asking their businesses to AIize. Don't like the term, but don't just AIize for the sake of it. That's my number one. So there's 2 key things that I'm learning, because this is very much a learning space for me as well. AI is about a value case, right? So often in technology and mechanization, we think about proving a concept, right? So we're willing to take a step into the unknown to see if a technology, a piece of equipment does what it says it's going to do. And that in itself means that you're willing to fail, right? With AI, there's so many different ways of doing it that the way that and I really like how Iris, our team in Iris really package AI, it's about proof of value. Right, so find somewhere in your business, right? We're lagging across the world on productivity. Find somewhere in your business that you believe that an AI tool can increase your productivity, and then go to the end. What would it look like if it was working? And measure it. It's so simple, right? So that's point number 1. Choose one, measure it, prove value before moving on. Number 2 is choose your data strategy early. Okay, because AI, all of the systems here, you could actually design a warehouse that has all of them in it. And that's the complexity, right? And the centralized data governance is going to be key in how you optimize across all the other flows. So data governance strategy first, and start small, prove value.
Wow, that's amazing. It blows your mind really when you think about it, because everyone, like you said, everyone's using the buzzword of AI, but doesn't really know what AI is. And the fact that you put it into very simple terms around, just getting people to understand, well, this is the first thing I can do in my business, that's really going to be a game changer.
Yeah. And don't commit to other people's AI platform strategy, right? So you're going to have the big vendors, the software vendors, they're all trying to get you to go into their environment, use their large language models or their visual language models, and then they own your data, right? So this is why the data strategy is so important. Have control of your data, experiment with AI, you then own the outcome, and you can also learn from how you got to that outcome. And it's actually something I'm very passionate about, because we continue to see that shift of demographic. We've got an old, aging workforce, and they're not being replaced. Right, we just don't have young people excited about working in warehouses, at least not the traditional warehouses. We can get a little bit further with automated warehouses. So how do you transfer that knowledge into the new and move forward? AI as a chatbot, for example. What people don't realize is that when people start interfacing and talking to AI, you can actually capture that, and you can say, what questions are they asking? Is there a lack of capability? Is there a lack of capacity? And then you can actually build your solutions focused on the questions that your people are asking, but then also you can cater your training modules in the future to fill those gaps. So it actually tells you everything if you set it up right. But most people, they're taking a scattergun approach. They're like, I use GPT, I use this for that for that, and they're not measuring. And therefore, there's actually studies coming out that people feel like they're more productive with AI, but they're actually less productive. And that's what we're trying to avoid.
Wow, you make some such valid points. It's so important. We've got some challenges in the sector, like you said, like young people, it's not sexy. People don't want to be in some of these roles, especially manual handling and repetitive tasks. It's not exciting for young people today. And also you're filling that void by people to understand, like, how do we use AI in a way that generates productivity for the company, but also then makes us more useful as people.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more, but I do want to shift the focus a little bit. AI is not the answer. It's how we take the next step forward. But one of the things I'm really passionate about, just finished my keynote on actually delivering projects properly. It was called the toxicity of change on purpose. I was trying to kind of get to people that have been there. They know what happens when a project starts to derail, right? And I was talking about keeping your momentum, your optimism, your complexity in check, and using silence in your project as your canary in the coal mine for when you know that projects are heading off track. So for me, one of my biggest passions, because over the last couple of years, we're seeing a lot of projects not delivered on time, not delivered at all. And the complexity of the new solutions, integration seems to be a failing point across the board. So we haven't even talked about AI in that whole sentence. It's about the fundamentals. It's about good governance. It's about, culture, making sure that people are coming along for the journey. And that momentum doesn't just mean that you keep moving forward blindly. That optimism doesn't mean that you just forget about reality. That complexity doesn't mean that you're just looking for the most complex solution because it looks good. You need to apply the fundamentals. That's still how we get value out of automation.
Wow, you make some such valid points, Jeffrey. I mean, I could talk all day. I know, and we're only at the end of day one. So how are you finding CeMAT so far?
I'm loving it. I think for once we can actually one-up Melbourne. Sydney CeMAT was better than last year's Melbourne already. So I'm huge on the intercity rivalry, and I'm really happy with what we've put in. And we're starting to see the next generation of robotics come through, the rack climbing robots. So that's really exciting. We're always taking steps forward. So very happy to be here. Great day one. I wish I could come for the next couple of days.
Fantastic. And just one thing I'd ask you, Jeffrey, what's something that stood out here that you've seen so far? Because obviously this is the biggest exhibition we've seen through CeMAT. So what's the one thing that you wandered around so far? Is there anything that's like, oh, that's really interesting?
Yeah, again, I'm going to mention, I'm harping on about the same thing, but rack climbing robots, that's what I call them, RCRs. They are going to change the game, right? We've gone from a lot of traditional solutions. We went through the AMR journey where we kind of decentralized, mobilized automation, but now we're actually blending the traditional mini-load kind of ASRS technology with the mobile technology, and I'm excited about what's coming because it's bringing automation cost point lower, which means it's accessible to everyone.
Yeah, and you make such a great point. This has always been the challenge around some of the, the cost of integration, the cost of software, the cost of, the change management piece, which you talked about, and then it's around, companies are meant to predict their business, which is always a challenge around, when we're buying everyone up and, not just the part size, but also the volume size that we're seeing changing. How do we adapt to that?
It's such a great observation. The big are getting bigger, but what really excites me is that every year we think that there's consolidation, but we still get new players popping up, right? And I'm a huge advocate for competition, and I help new vendors come into the market. So, but to your point, you've got to be more careful than ever, right? Because there's so many options, and some of them can be hugely different to each other. And if you're just driven by cost, you can go down the wrong path.
Such a valid point. Cost has always been a big decider for a lot of companies, especially now CFOs are making decisions on behalf of supply chain. It's always been a challenge. And then we're seeing small and medium-sized companies coming through who want to go into that space, and it's always been a challenge because of the cost side of things.
Absolutely. And those small to mediums, I actually feel like they have a bit of a benefit because they can go in, they can control their scope, they can develop their systems or more at the front line with the operational nuances at touch. I find that with some of the big businesses, they lose sight of what's actually happening on the front line. So I think that's the benefit for these small businesses. Cost point coming down, you've got more solutions than ever. You've got to be really careful about who you decide to partner with and understand the whole architecture of software, the integration layer, and your hardware.
Wow, it's always a pleasure to interview Jeff. It's been such a pleasure as always on behalf of Import Export Television. I know it's the end of day one and like you said, you're not back. So I hope you got everything you got out of today's session here at CeMAT, and looking forward to seeing you again soon.
Likewise, thank you very much.